Well, the show continues to prove that there's a lot more surrounding the Cody family than we ever thought, and Baz might be a lot more shady than we ever thought he was. Hey guys, Cameron for Animal Kingdom, Season 1, Episode 3, Stay Close, Stick Together. I was really looking forward to this episode. I overall really enjoyed the first two episodes. I think the second episode definitely was better than the first, and especially show me more of the show is capable of, and, this episode, for me, again, I really enjoy it. It did have some problems, definitely. Actually, more than last week, and it seems like every episode of the show, there are going to be problems that weren't there in the last episode, and, I don't exactly know where the show is going. I'm going to say that right now. I don't really know, but I think this episode kind of shows. But there are just some things in this episode I just thought were a bit strange, but let's just get into it because I definitely do want to talk about it. I thought there was some really great scenes here. Now, we start with Pope, and we really couldn't start with being more savage with Pope. We see him, he's beating a fish to death on the pier, and we see this guy, Vin, approach him. And I don't know who this guy is, but this guy he seems really shady. He asks if he's going to eat it, and he's a fellow ex-con. He talks about the job they can do to take it safe. He tells Pope that he's been in 11 years and needs to work to live, and Pope says he can't take any risk yet with parole sniffing around, and we know that obviously, you know, Pope just got out of jail, and the guy asked about the baby, and Pope must have been telling people that Catherine and Lena were his wife and kid, and that's really interesting that we found this out. And then we find it was Pope's cellmate, and Pope was lying about this life on the outside to him for years, clearly because I think he's kind of ashamed of the real life he has. He wishes that he had Baz's life, and I think this really makes Pope a lot more interesting. The fact that he kind of wishes that he had Baz's life is very fascinating, but actually after this episode, I definitely would not want to have Baz's life, just the way we see this here. We'll get into this a little bit. We then see Nikki. She wakes in bed with Jay, and basically they're both naked in bed. She panics because her dad's gonna freak out. He steals the watch from her jewelry box because obviously, you know, that's just kind of the life they have, and I think Jay's kind of realizing that it's just kind of what he has to do, and, you know, especially being in this family, you gotta do what you gotta do, and he takes off on his bike. Her dad, Paul, then stops his police car in front of him and asks if he spent the night in his house, and her dad is played by C. Thomas Howell, and I like the way that that's done. I like seeing that her dad's obviously very authoritative and that he's a police officer. Probably the worst thing for this family. And even though he loves Nikki, her father's a police officer, and this is not at all a good situation for their family, who we know, you know, are very much, involved in heavy crime and stealing things and whatnot, and really puts them in a very bad position. So then we get this really weird scene with Baz. As you know, we saw Baz and that girl, and in this episode, they're having, like, sex like crazy, you know, not just, like, a small fling. This seems like they're having really passionate sex, and his phone keeps ringing, and why is he with this girl? I mean, he's married to Catherine, and he has, you know, a kid, Lena, so why in the world, you know, why the fuck is he with this girl, Lucy? I have no idea. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, and really, I mean, I was kind of liking Baz's character, but I didn't really like him in this episode. He takes the call, runs out. Jay comes home, runs into Smurf, and he says, sorry for staying out all night, but she says, come and go as you please. And this next episode, next scene really does show how, you know, what lines that Smurf is willing to cross, and really how she doesn't really believe in boundaries. Because she tosses him a cell phone, says, call you next time if you decide to sleep somewhere else. And I gotta say, the scenes between her and Jay, you know, are some of the best scenes in this episode, just the way that's going on. She says the boys will be back tonight since Craig is better. She says she's making ribs tonight, then asks if he's literally asks right off the bat if he's having sex with Nikki, and he's embarrassed, and she's not upset. She asks, you know, literally... Again, this is not all normal. If she asks if he satisfies her, then says he may need to tell her what he likes in bed. She tosses him a cell phone, says call next time you decide to sleep, and even says that there are so many times where her boys are just having sex with girls, just so they can get something out of them, or the girl's taking advantage of them, or things like that, and just a really weird scene overall. I mean, I get that obviously Smurf, you know, very much cares about her kids and everything, but Jay is her grandson. It's just really creepy to see a grandmother have a conversation with her grandson, but you really do see that that's just how Smurf works. I do like the way that's being handled. Smurf right now, I'm gonna say, is a bit one-dimensional, definitely, because they're really not doing anything, you know, else with her, except, oh, she's kind of just this very overbearing grandmother slash mother. I just want to see a little more of their character, a little more what's going on, because we didn't really see a lot more in this episode. But Baz then goes back inside to Lucy. He says sorry. He says, let's go back to bed. She says she's busy. He jokes with her in Spanish, and she asks if Smurf is okay. He says, the doctor told me he can take Craig home today. Lucy tells him that Craig doesn't blame and says he's, he says good since he didn't shoot him, and she asks what he's going to do about the guy that shot Craig, and he says nothing because the guy that shot him is dead. So it's really not his problem at all, and a kid then comes running in, and it's actually her son. So not only is he with Catherine, he has a whole other life, it seems, with this girl and her son. He hands the kid a Halo video game, they go to play, and you wonder if that's also his kid. So really shady stuff going on with Baz, and it's just not really justified. Like, I understand that Baz, very much cares about Jay, but that's not enough of a reason for me to justify what he's doing. Why is he cheating on Catherine? Why does he have this whole other life? Now, I get that obviously he's involved in heavy crime, and it's kind of what it requires him to do, but Catherine's who he really is with, and he's married to her, and you kind of get the sense he might be married to this girl as well. If you guys remember that show Lone Star, back on, Fox, where that guy had, two different lives with, two different wives. That very much reminded me of this. Baz is he has two lives, and it doesn't seem like the two know about each other, and it's not going to end well for either of them if the other finds out about the other, and I really feel eventually that's going to happen. So, really interesting what's going on there. Catherine then shows up to Smurf's house, freaks out when she sees Lena in the pool, looking like she's struggling, and Smurf is right there, says she'll be swimming soon, and I do get what Smurf is saying, that it's not normal for someone in California to not be swimming, and Catherine freaks out, says, call me before you do something like that. Smurf says it's ridiculous, she can't swim, and says you learn by being thrown in, and then asks if she's coming tonight. She says Baz really missed her, and says bring the baby and come tonight. Smurf says leave her with me, and I'll cover your work money, and Catherine's very annoyed. She says no, and goes, and she's not really happy with the way that obviously Smurf is, with her daughter. She doesn't like that Smurf, completely just did that without her consent, basically, because, that should be something that Smurf, gives that, that she gets the okay from Catherine with, and then she can go on to do that, but she didn't do that. That really did piss her off, and I honestly didn't understand why she was really upset about that, and especially after what's going on with Baz. Catherine, I really do feel bad for her, just because she has no idea really what her husband is doing. She has no idea how he's scheming behind her, and how he has this whole other life, it seems, and she doesn't even seem to know about it. I really did like Baz last week, but I don't know, his appeal and just, my liking to his character is kind of waning after this episode. I get why he's doing what he's doing, but it just doesn't really seem like something Baz would do. He seemed like he really did care about Catherine and Lena, and now it seemed like that was all bullshit, and then he actually is with this girl, and it just seems a bit, not really, just seemed a bit out of character. I don't really know where they're going with this, but really interesting the way that went down. Like I said, I was liking Baz. I don't dislike Baz. It's just the way they did this, maybe they'll be able to sway me over, but right now it's just a very questionable twist that I was very surprised about, and I don't really know where they're headed with it. So Craig then tells Doc Nevins that he wants to go. Nevins says 6 more hours in the IV. Baz says that Smurf come home, so they're going. Nevins says if he exerts himself, he'll reopen the wounds, and obviously that's really bad. And Craig says he's not going home without having tequila on the beach. And I will say that keeping a wound open sometimes is the best thing to do, because it just lets the air out. That's kind of what you have to do sometimes. But in this case, this is a very serious wound. And Devin is there, and Smurf tells him to go collect slate rent from Teo, and Pope comes in, hands him the fish. Smurf asks if he's noticed Jay hasn't been around as much, and Pope says he doesn't care. Smurf says that life went on without them, and he has to work his way back in. She says Jay is new and is up for grabs, and Nikki and Jay are at the beach. She says she lost the watch he gave her. She says she thought that it was in her jewelry box, and it's completely gone. She says that she feels bad. Jay says that it'll help her find it, and she kisses him, and she says the nicest thing that anyone ever gave her. And we know, of course, that he took the watch. Now, I think the way Jay's going to do this is that he's going to make it seem like that the watch was gone all along, that he, of course, took it so he can just hide it from her, and then it'll be that way. So I like the way that's going. He's not just going to steal from her, but you're also not sure. Is he actually going to steal from her? Is she actually going to find it? I'm not really sure. And it really is, questioning Jay's loyalties. Where do his loyalties really lie? Is he really allied with his family, or does he have his own plan with Nikki? If he really loves Nikki, he'll give her back to watch. If he doesn't give her back to watch, he doesn't love Nikki, and I think definitely does show that here. And I don't know why he would... Nikki, like Smurf says, is a very beautiful young girl, so definitely I would agree with that. She's very hot, and really, Nikki just... I get that obviously he doesn't really want to be with her, I guess, now because of what her father's going through, but just, because of who her father is and everything, and how much of it would put him in a bad position with his family. But the fact that he stole her watch is obviously a big problem. So at the beach in Mexico, Craig has IV in his arm. Baz's girl is there, Marco offers Craig a chance to make some money. Baz says no. Marco is Lucy's brother, and he hassles Craig about Smurf holding his balls and Baz playing White Knights. Darren goes to collect rent from the surf shop, and the guy sends him to see Adrian. Darren says he's sorry. Adrian's the guy who was blowing him and then he beats, and he says he had to pay $4K for an MRI, so he doesn't want to pay rent, and he says otherwise he can tell Smurf that Darren sucked his dick, then sucker punched him like a pussy. Pope goes to find Jay, tells Nikki family stuff, and tells Jay to get in the truck. He tosses his bike in the back, tells her sorry. Pope gets impatient as he kisses her goodbye. Baz says goodbye to Lucy, who gives him a souvenir to take to Lena. He kisses her, and it seems like she does know about Lena, so it's not like she doesn't know about him, but about her, and I don't know if Catherine knows about Lucy. I don't think she does. And he kisses her goodbye after they swap endowments, and the question is, does Lucy know that Baz is married? Does she know about Catherine? Because she knows about Lucy, but has Baz been telling her that, oh, I have a daughter, but has he not been telling her about Catherine? Because that's something I'm definitely very interested in, you know, why Baz isn't telling her, and why Baz is doing this in the first place. Because you don't get the sense that this is for his job. It doesn't seem like that's what this is for at all. It has nothing to do with the heist stuff he's doing. It doesn't seem like that's at all what's going on. It seems like he's just with two girls, and we don't really know why. And that's not enough of a reason for me to really care. So Pope then takes Jay with him to the surf shop. Darren asks why he's there. Jay says that he has an English test, and Pope tells Darren he has a good thing for them to do, and he agrees, gets in the truck, and obviously, you know, they're not going to let Jay go to this, you know, English test, and Smurf is at the grocery store loading up her cart. Smurf sees Lena run by. She says she's hiding from Crystal. Smurf walks off with her to get ice cream and offer sprinkles. She leaves her groceries, walks out, standing her from the babysitter. Catherine is at work at the bar when an off-duty cop comes in, talks about the meth heads that robbed a jewelry store, and Fisher tells her if they catch them that they won't make it back to the station since they shot a cop, and Fisher flirts with her. Then Catherine gets a call from Crystal, and of course, I'm pretty sure that Catherine knows this is about Baz and Darren and Craig, because they are the ones that robbed the jewelry store, and she gets a call from Crystal, the sitter. She's panicking. Pope then swaps the plates on the trick, and they put a magnetic sign on it, and Jay asks what they're doing there. Darren asks if Pope vetted the place, and he says it's cool. Craig then tells Baz that Lucy looks good, and he teases him. He says it's not serious because she has a kid, and Craig says that Baz does too. And again, yeah, I mean, I don't dislike Craig here because, yeah, Baz has a kid. Why is Baz with Lucy? I have no idea. It just doesn't really make sense. He has a kid and a wife. He has a whole life there. Why is he with Lucy? I have no idea, and they don't really acknowledge, you know, they don't really give you a reason as to why he's with her. And the drug dog at the border is going car to car. Baz asks what he did. Baz tells him to throw it out. Craig says that he can't throw a quarter key out the window, and Baz tells him to shut up, let him do the talking. The drugs are in a burrito, and he picks it up and nibbles it. The dog and handler go by without incident. Craig says it's all good, and Darren and Pope then have hard-hand trucks, and Jay follows nervously. They go into a warehouse, and they pop the lock. They clear out some carts of equipment and grab a sledgehammer. They butt through the sheetrock. Jay stands and watches, and we actually get what I think is probably the most intense heist scene we've gotten so far. Like, these scenes for me, they just haven't really been as intense as they should be. They've just kind of been you know, I haven't really cared as much. But I thought this scene was really well done. They cut through some metal, avoid the wire. They go through the wall. Pope tells Jay not to forget the backpack. They go to search for the safe, and Pope says he doesn't know where the safe is. He says right there. They spot it. It's huge. It's bolted to the floor, and they pull tools out of the backpack and get to work. Pope uses compressed air to pop the bottom bolts. Darren spots someone on the security camera in a truck, and he's panicking because he has no idea who it is. It's probably the cops, and they put a wheeled dolly under the safe as the guy gets closer. Darren tells him to hurry, and I like seeing that these cops are advancing on them. The one problem is that you just don't really care, but it was intense nevertheless, and they run out and panic and punch through the wall. The safe won't fit. Darren says they have to go. Darren runs off, but Jay grabs the saw, cuts the wire. They punched it through, and Pope glares at Darren as they leave, and Baz pulls up at the first stop, yanks his brother out, punches him hard. Baz curses him for shoving drugs in a burrito and running shit for Marco, because, yeah, why would you put drugs in a burrito? Of all things, it's really weird, and Craig says it was a gift, and I get that obviously, you know, he wanted to get the drugs in there in some way he could, you know, they didn't know. I mean, there's a thing called roofies, but Baz says they have to be smart right now. Craig says Smurf barely gave them enough to live on, and again, we know that Craig feels that Smurf, you know, they need to try to get their own money without Smurf, and Craig says he can sell it, then reminds him that he has nothing. Baz has Catherine and Lena, and Catherine makes a statement at the store, and yeah, again, Baz has Catherine and Lena, but he also has this life with Lucy, and it doesn't make any sense, and Catherine makes a statement at the store to a lady police officer. The security guard points out that Lena's on the street, and she sees she left with Smurf. Pope works to crack the safe. Darren and Jay stand by and watch. He gets it open. Inside is porn, and he tosses it aside. He finds stacks of cash, exactly what they need, and Pope says he and Jay will split the cash. Darren can have the porn. Darren says he was looking out for Pope, and Pope says that Jay has more balls than you. Cuts the wire. Darren asks why he wants to risk going to prison again for 10K. They bicker, and Jay says let's split it 3 ways as the brothers face off, which I think was a smart thing to do, each split it, in their own way, and Pope says okay, tells Darren to thank them for having genuine balls, and the way that Jay seems to be kind of like the voice of reason, I kind of do like. It seemed like Baz was going to be, but after this episode, there is no way that Baz is someone to emulate. I mean, having 2 girls, it's very shady, it's not a good thing to do, and you shouldn't do it, definitely. Just don't be a player, have 1 steady girl, it's enough for you, really, it's enough, it should be enough, and Pope says to thank you Jay for having some balls. Pope keeps broading him, and Darren screams him, then walks off. Catherine comes to Smurf house furious, as if she's out of her mind for kidnapping her kid, and Smurf says her kid was running around a grocery store all alone, and Crystal is not fit to watch her. She just doesn't feel that Crystal should be watching her, and that she should be. And again, you can just tell that Smurf really just wants to be in this kid's life, I think, and Catherine says they don't belong to her. Smurf says that Catherine always takes from the family. Catherine says she knows who Smurf is, even if Baz doesn't see it. She knows that Smurf really can't be trusted, and Smurf says that Baz gives Catherine a nice life, and not to forget where it comes from. And again, he's with Catherine. Why is he with Lucy? Again, I don't understand it. And Lena comes in. Smurf says, Granny loves you. Catherine then snatches her up to go, runs into Pope. It's awkward when they go. Pope asks Smurf what that was. She says some bullshit. And again, you get the sense that Pope really is jealous of the life that Baz and Catherine have. But he also is not cheating on anyone. So at least there's that. At least Pope isn't cheating on anyone. At least, he's somewhat trustworthy. Not to say that Pope is any less shady in this episode, because he totally is, but at least he's more trustworthy than Baz is in this episode, because Baz, I don't know what's going on with him, but, he really just can't feel satisfied with one girl. I really have no idea. I think that song Satisfied from Hamilton fits perfectly with his character, because he's never satisfied. Craig then sells Marco drugs for 8K. Baz yells him for being high, but then laughs. They take off. Pope asks Jay wasn't that fun. Says he did good. Jay hands him the watch he got back from Nikki, and says he took it, and she thinks he lost it. Pope says as long as Nikki keeps it and doesn't sell it, it's cool. Really, there's nothing wrong about it. And Pope says that just make sure she keeps it, hands it back. Craig and Baz, and again, it seems that Pope is trying to be reasonable here. Craig and Baz then come in. Pope tells Craig he smells terrible. Jay watches them. Jay approaches Darren inside and asks to talk. Jay says he didn't see anything in the bathroom at the beach the other day, and he doesn't care either way. And Darren says he doesn't know what he's talking about, then smirks and walks away. Craig then snorts coke, and Baz tells him to switch to beer for the day. Pope asks if Baz saw Lucy, and the brothers teach each other about who their fathers were. Pope says that Darren's dad was a selfish prick that was short, and they ran off 2 weeks before he was born. Pope says he delivered him, and he slid right off onto the bathroom floor, and Pope says he's leaving since he's not supposed to sleep there. And Catherine Lowe, and this is something I want to find out, is really what is, Smurf's history, how this family come to be. That's stuff I want to know. I want to see some flashbacks into that, and I'm hoping we do get that, because that part of the show is really interesting, what's going on in the family. The way that Smurf is like the matriarch of the family is really interesting. I really do want to see how this family came to be what it is. So we also know, a big part of the family, not all of them are her sons, some of them were adopted, and Catherine loads Lena into the car. She's already sleeping. Pope is right there, startles her. He asks she's okay what happened with Smurf. She says she missed 2 hours of work. She says they docked her pay and her daughter slept in a bar, and Pope offers her a stock of cash and says don't tell Baz, but get a decent babysitter, and he reminds her that she was his friend first. Fisher then comes out, the cop, and asks if she's okay. Catherine says she is, then tells Pope not to come there anymore. He glares at Fisher, walks off. The cop asks if that's her boyfriend, and she says his brother's, and he hands her his card and says, call me instead, 911 if you have any questions. And again, this cop really does not trust what they're doing, and obviously is very shady in the sense, for the siblings, but obviously, they're just doing their job, but you definitely know that obviously this cop is investigating them, and this won't end well for anyone. So then we go is probably the most intense scene in the episode, and probably most impressive, where Darren, Jay, and Baz, they talk about surfing. Baz takes off, leaves them talking. Darren asks if he's ever been held down by a 20-footer, and says prove it. They each take 8 jumps into the pool, and they test their breath holding, and they dive to the bottom, and each sits down. They stare, and the music thumps above them. Jay starts to crack a bit, and Darren's just staring at him. It's literally just creepily staring at him. They see people looking down on them. Jay goes to rise up, but Darren grabs his leg. Jay fights him, he smiles, and they grapple, and he finally lets the kid go. Jay comes out of the water, gasping, and swims to the side and gets out, and it's really just crazy what happened there. Darren finally comes up. Jay's still gasping for air because he left him there for so long. I mean, I think he left him under there for a good, 3 minutes, and that's really crazy. I mean, you really shouldn't be underwater for longer than 2 minutes, but that really was insane the way that was done. And really, the challenge was to hold a dumbbell underwater for, and see how long you can do that. It really is very crazy the way that was done. I get why I wanted him to do that, but again, Darren really is just putting him through hell, you can tell. And Baz tells Smurf that Pope's pills aren't working. She says she had to lower the dose, give it a few days. He asks what happened with Catherine and Smurf and says the girl's ungrateful. Jay comes to Nikki's house and says she thought that she lost her watch, and Paul says he doesn't like him giving her something expensive and doesn't know where it came from. Jay says it was the only nice thing his mom had, and Paul says he'll give it to her, and Smurf comes to confront Darren and asks where is Jay, and she says all his clothes are gone, asks what the hell happened. She gets physical with Darren, pulls his hair. He lies, says that Teo paid the rent, but she won't be distracting, demands an answer, and Baz goes to his dad's place, and he's got a secret stash of cash there, and adds more to it. He points a gun at the back of his dad's head again, and his dad says just do it, literally says just kill me, and he doesn't, luckily, and Baz then gives him some cash, but wads it up, throws it on the floor by his hand, and Baz is a shady dude. There's still a lot of things going on. The fact that Baz has his dad, he has Lucy. I mean, there's a lot of things going on with Baz we did not know about, and I really do want to find out. Out of all the characters, he's really the one that I want to find out the most about, is really what's going on and why does he have this life? Why is he doing this stuff? We don't really know. That will totally get me on board. I'm just not really on board right now because I don't really know why he's doing this stuff. So Smurf then finds Jay at the bus station. She says she tracked her phone and does it with all the boys. He said he thought it would be better for everyone if he just left because he's really just causing problems. And she says his uncles play rough and always have. She asks where he's going. He says his mom knew a guy who lived in Stockton, and Smurf says her mom was a junkie too. She asks the guy in Stockton might be his dad, and Jay says he doesn't know. And again, we remember there is the point of him trying to find his dad, and he asks if she knows who his dad is. Smurf says his mom had a lot of guys around. She says she only loved one of them though, and says she tried to welcome him into the family, and that's again something that we're going to find out what's going on. And Smurf says she cannot make him her brother, and he asks if it's Baz. Remember, Baz isn't Smurf's biological child, so he might actually be Jay's brother, which is interesting if he is. And if he is actually Jay's brother, that's a very interesting twist if that does end up happening, and it really just show why Baz was so protective of Jay, and why Baz kind of sticks up for Jay in the way he does. So that could be a very interesting reveal if he is Jay's brother, and I think it'd be interesting if it was. But Smurf then comes home with Jay, tells him no more running away, and I am looking forward to seeing, what was his mother's life? Why was his mother not involved with his family? We don't really know. I mean, we know that obviously they know about her, but she never told him about them. So there's more going on that he had no idea about, and I'm looking forward to seeing really why she hid all this stuff. So Smurf then comes home, tells Jay no more running away. Darren looks upset. Smurf kisses him on the lips. Jay goes to his room. Darren tries to talk to Smurf, but she walks away from him. Baz goes to talk to, because obviously, he tried to kill Jay, and Baz goes to talk to Jay, says, don't worry about Darren. He says, Darren talks big, but it's just talk. And Jay says he shot his mom up the day she died because she couldn't find a vein, so she asked him to do it, and he says he did it right in her foot, and Baz says it's not his fault. His mom was a wreck and did that shit to all of them, and really, she's just a very unstable woman, and Baz tells him to get some more sleep and leaves, and you do get the sense that him and his mom definitely had a relationship, and that Baz and his mom maybe could be his mom. I mean, you don't really know. Very interesting way that's going. So Jay lies down, tries to rest. Smurf then wakes to one of her sons watching her. It's Pope. He comes into the room, gets in bed with her. Totally Norma Bates moment. Goes into bed with her, literally crawls into bed, sleeps right beside her. That is the way the episode ends. Really creepy overall. But let's just get into this episode. So I will say that out of the three, I do think this was the strongest of the three by far. Definitely really great stuff. It's just Baz's stuff is very confusing now. On one hand, I feel bad for this guy because he's adopted and he has this father and he has this wad of cash and everything. But on the other hand, he has this whole other life that no one seems to know about except for the girl that he's with, and I don't really know where that's all come from. Why is he with Lucy? Where is this girl? How does he know her? That stuff I don't really know. I'm looking forward to seeing what happened with that. Could Baz be Jay's biological biological brother. That could be very interesting because that would connect them to who their father is. And if Baz's father is the same as Jay's father, this can't end well for either because we already know that Baz's father doesn't seem like a good guy, just the way he acts. He clearly wants to be killed. I'm looking forward to seeing more of what's going on there. What was Jay's mom's past? What was she really like? Why did she never tell Jay about this family? That's something I'm looking forward to, is seeing what's going on with that. As far as Nikki's dad being a cop, this is a very bad situation for Jay, obviously. The fact that his family is so corrupted and things like that. He seems to really care about them and seems to really want to help them. So this really isn't going to work out well for anyone, and really, I don't really know how that's going to go. That's going to be very interesting to see how that all turns out. As far as, Smurf and Catherine goes, I like seeing the conflict between these two. I like the way that was done. Definitely really interesting. And then we know those cops are now investigating the brothers. This isn't going to end well for anyone, definitely. Does Catherine know about, Baz's other life? I don't really think she does. That's how she's going to find out. I'm sure she will, but I just don't know how. Smurf's whole thing with Catherine, like I said, that was well done. Darren, you just can't really trust this guy. I mean, the way that he's kind of terrorizing Jay is very interesting. The way that's going, the way that Jay is kind of blaming himself for his mom's death, I think is definitely interesting as well. Overall, guys, I really did enjoy this episode. This was really solid overall. Like I said, besides the really questionable stuff with Baz, was a very good episode. I really enjoy it. Really enjoying the show overall. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. There's a lot of stuff going on in this family, and I like the mystery that's going on here, the mystery that's surrounding them. It's just overall really interesting. And we'll see you guys in my next one, which will be for another class movie review, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.